Hi everyone, and thank you for watching this video. Today we're going to be looking at the beginning of the next perspective of the church age in Revelation. This perspective can be called Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great symbolizes the evil world system in which we live. This segment, which covers chapters 17 through 19, records the destruction of that world system. We're only going to be reading chapter 17 today, just so you can understand this beginning as much as possible. It is pretty dense. We're going to be starting at the very top. One of the seven angels who had poured out the seven bowls came over and spoke to me. "Come with me," he said, "and I will show you the judgment that is going to come on the great prostitute who rules over many waters. The kings of the world have committed adultery with her, and the people who belong to this world have been made drunk by the wine of her immorality." There are only two women in the book of Revelation. There's one pure bride and then there's one immoral prostitute. One depends on the heavens and the other depends on the kings of the earth. Both are compared to cities. One is called the New Jerusalem and the other is called Babylon the Great. These women must be antithetical to each other. If one woman, the bride, should be seen as the bride of Christ or the church, which she ought to be seen as, then the other woman must be the complete opposite of that, the anti-body of Christ. Those who are not saved and not included in the covenant community of faith. But why is the sin of prostitution attributed to all evil people who are not saved? Well, all sins, first of all, are in essence acts of idolatry. Their sins are unpaid for, so they're guilty of this sin of idolatry because whenever you sin, you put your desires above God's will. So their main fault is idolatry. That is the most typical sin that humanity can be guilty of. And also throughout the Old Testament, prostitution was used to symbolize idolatry because you're basically committing spiritual fornication or spiritual adultery. By longing after other idols and obeying other false gods, you are being unfaithful to the Lord. That's why it is likened to prostitution. So the angel took me in the spirit into the wilderness. This wilderness is symbolic. As I've briefly explained before, the wilderness just represents a place of spiritual protection in the midst of spiritual warfare. God is guaranteeing John a degree of divine protection so that he won't fall into the trap of sin that he's about to be tempted to fall into. There I saw a woman sitting on the scarlet beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and blasphemies against God were written all over it. The woman wore purple and scarlet clothing and beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. In her hand she held a gold goblet full of obscenities and the impurities of her immorality. A mysterious name was written on her forehead. Forehead represents ideological commitment in Revelation, so we're about to see her mentality, her heart. Babylon the Great, mother of all prostitutes and obscenities in the world. I could see that she was drunk with the blood of God's holy people who were witnesses for Jesus. I stared at her in complete amazement. So amazement throughout Revelation means a worshipful mentality. You may recall that the people of the world were admiring the beast out of the sea, and because of the feats that it was performing, they were amazed by it and they bent the knee. So John is on the verge of committing the sin of idolatry. It's a good thing that he's in the wilderness because that is kind of protecting him from falling into that trap completely. And not only that, but the angel who's interpreting the visions in front of him also rebukes him. He snaps him out of the trance before he can go too far. "Why are you so amazed?" the angel asked. "I will tell you the mystery of this woman and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns on which she sits. The beast you saw was once alive, but isn't now. And yet he will soon come up out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction. And the people who belong to this world, whose names were not written in the book of life before the world was made, will be amazed at the reappearance of this beast who had died." There's that word again, amazed. It means a worshipful mentality. Let me read a little passage of this right here again so you can kind of make the connections between this beast and the person that it represents. "The beast you saw was once alive, but isn't now. Satan once had more authority than he does now. Whenever Jesus died on the cross, he imposed restrictions on him. So he does not have the authority he used to have. And yet he will soon come up out of the bottomless pit and go to eternal destruction." That means that Satan will soon come up out of obscurity. He will make himself more obvious by persecuting people in an unprecedented way and go to eternal destruction. So right after he loses his restraints temporarily, he will be sent to hell with all those who follow him. "And the people who belong to this world, whose names were not written in the book of life, which the great prostitute symbolizes, all the unredeemed, will be amazed at the reappearance of this beast who had died." So this sounds like a mock resurrection. We see a lot of attempts of evil people and evil itself to imitate righteousness and godliness in Revelation. It just proves how unrighteousness is trying to seem like godliness. That way it will be difficult to kind of distinguish the difference between the two, and you will fall into error. We also see that the great prostitute is introduced and described in a similar way to the way that we're introduced to the bride of Christ and the way that she is described. That's another way in which evil is trying to imitate righteousness, but she falls short of it because she's about to be destroyed in the wrath of God, as we're about to read. This calls for a mind with understanding, the angel says to John. The 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 heels where the woman rules. They also represent 7 kings. So we see 7 heads, 7 heels, 7 kings. They all represent evil regimes. Throughout the Old Testament, heads and mountains represent strength and power, usually in the form of a kingdom, such as Mount Zion. Mount Zion is just symbolic for the presence and power of God. And it's interesting that that city is situated on a hill, and hills represent power. The 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 heels where the woman rules. They also represent the 7 kings. So heads, heels, kings, same thing, regimes. 5 kings or regimes have already fallen. 5 should not be taken literally. All these numbers are just symbolic. It means that evil regimes have come and gone throughout human history. The 6th now reigns. This is probably an evil, ever-present reality. We're currently under this reign and probably will be until the end, because 6 represents evil. It is the number of evil and of mankind. And the 7th reign is yet to come, but his reign will be brief. That 7th reign should be seen as the reign of the devil whenever he comes out of obscurity and wherever his restraints are weakened and wherever he causes unprecedented amounts of persecution in this world, right before the end of the tribulation and the coming of Christ. The scarlet beast that was but is no longer is the 8th king. So the scarlet beast has 7 heads or heels. They represent 7 kings or 7 regimes, but it itself, the scarlet beast itself, is the 8th regime. He is like the other 7, and he too is headed for destruction. The scarlet beast that was but is no longer, says verse 11, is the 8th king. So the scarlet beast was but is no longer. That means he's been defeated. So the scarlet beast should be seen as the devil, as I've clarified before. He is scarlet because that color red is associated with blood. And the devil appeared earlier as a red dragon, and he was persecuting the people of God. There's a lot of symbolism that follows the verses that I've just read, but the gist of this is that together the kings of the world collectively will go to war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will defeat them because he is the Lord of all lords and the King of all kings, and his called and chosen and faithful ones will be with him. The 7th reign and the 8th reign should be seen as the same reign, so just different nuances, different aspects of the same reign. We're looking at it from different angles. The number 7 is used to describe the final reign or the reign of Satan, because 7 represents perfection, right? And this is the climax of the tribulation, the pinnacle of the opposition and the persecution that Christians will meet. The church will be virtually destroyed, as we've seen in the 2 witnesses narrative. They were dead in the streets of Jerusalem. And the number 8 is also applied to this reign, the reign of Satan, because 8 represents new beginnings, and we're seeing a new beginning here. An unprecedented amount of persecution. We know that the number 8 represents new beginnings in the Bible for a number of reasons. So within a week, God created the world, as you know. On the 7th day, he rested from his work, and on the 8th day, the normal operation of creation began. The regular function started. So that was a new beginning. It's also interesting that Jesus was killed on the 6th day of the week, and that makes sense because 6 is the number of evil. He rested on the 7th day, the Passover. That means that he rested on the Sabbath, which is a fulfillment of the whole point of the Sabbath day. And then he rose from the dead on the 8th day. That was a new beginning for us believers. His resurrection meant new life for us. Under the Mosaic law, you had to be circumcised at 8 days old. That was a new beginning for you because you were entering into the covenant community of faith. 8 people survived the flood, so that means 8 people repopulated the world. And the covenant that God made with Noah, saying that he would never destroy creation via a flood again, was recorded in Genesis chapter 8. So why are 2 numbers used to describe the same reign, the number 7 and then the number 8? Well, I think that the graded numerical saying is being employed here. The graded numerical saying was a Jewish literary device used in Scripture to prove that a literal quantity was not being expressed through the numbers given. These numbers are just figurative. Proverbs 30, chapters 18 through 19 says, "There are 3 things that amaze me. No, 4 things I don't understand. How an eagle glides through the sky, how a snake slithers on a rock, how a ship navigates the ocean, and how a man loves a woman." Also in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 2, "But divide your investments among 7 or even 8 places, for you do not know what risks might lie ahead." Micah chapter 5, verse 5 is the best example. When the Assyrians invade our land and break through our defenses, we will appoint 7 rulers to watch over us, 8 princes to lead us. So 7 rulers or 8 princes? It's kind of confusing, isn't it? It just proves that it's not a literal quantity being expressed through these numbers. They're just figurative. They should not be taken literally. So the 7th reign is the last reign, but then there's an 8th reign. They're just the same reign. They're the final manifestation of the enemy of God in this world. So the great prostitute is reclining on the beast. That means that evil people are benefiting off Satan. They're in a collusion with him, wittingly or unwittingly. If you're not saved, you're on the devil's team. You're reclining on him. That means you're profiting off your collusion with him, but soon Satan will pull the rug on you because he is not your friend. Even though he'll make life convenient for you a little bit, going along with the flow of the world sure is the easy way in life because you don't have to undergo the opposition that comes with being a Christian, but soon he is going to betray you, as we're about to see here. Then the angel said to me, the waters where the prostitute is ruling represent masses of people of every nation and language. The scarlet beast and his 10 horns all hate the prostitute. They will strip her naked, eat her flesh, and burn her remains with fire. For God has put a plan into their minds, a plan that will carry out his purposes. They will agree to give their authority to the scarlet beast, and so the words of God will be fulfilled. And this woman you saw in your vision represents a great city that rules over the kings of the world, and that city is none other than Babylon the Great. The great prostitute is compared to Babylon the Great because Babylon the Great is the evil world system in which we live, and it is composed of the evil inhabitants of this world. It wouldn't be an evil world system, at least in the sense that it is, without the evil residents, which is all those who are not delivered. So the great prostitute is in this way synonymous with Babylon the Great. They both represent the world system, but the great prostitute more so the people that make up the world system. The great prostitute, all those who are unsaved, is being destroyed by the beast, which she was profiting off of. She thought that she was almost in charge of the beast. She was in an alliance with it. She was lying on it, comfortable, until the beast abruptly destroyed the great prostitute in a gruesome way. There is no neutrality in this spiritual fight. You're either with God or against God. If you're not with him, you are against him, and you're essentially on Satan's side. So if you're on Satan's side, you might think that you have it easy and everything's going well for you. The great prostitute was living in luxury, as we have seen. And we see the righteous people of the Old Testament constantly complaining about that and asking why God is allowing this to happen, because it seems like injustice that evil people are living better than the righteous. That's a prevalent reality in history, and it will be until the end. In fact, it'll only get worse, but God permits this to test our integrity. We can't conform, we cannot compromise just so that we can identify with other people and so that we can escape the opposition and the persecution, no matter how bad it gets. We have to remain strong. Look where the unsaved are heading. They're heading for destruction. The beast will destroy the great prostitute. Satan will betray all those who are in an alliance with it. They will all end up in hell. Now, this sudden betrayal should not surprise us because Jesus actually foresaw this and foretold this in the book of Mark. Let's look at that. Beginning in Mark chapter 3, verse 22, but the teachers of religious law who had arrived from Jerusalem said, he's possessed by Satan, the prince of demons. That's where he gets the power to cast out demons. Jesus called them over and responded with an illustration. How can Satan cast out Satan, he asked. A kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. Similarly, a family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And if Satan is divided and fights against himself, how can he stand? He would never survive. We've seen shadows of this satanic civil war throughout the Old Testament. One of the greatest examples is found in Ezekiel. We'll begin in chapter 3, verse 25. I, God is speaking, will turn my jealous anger against you. He's speaking to Jerusalem, symbolized by a prostitute. Is that coincidental? I don't think so. And they will deal harshly with you. They is another enemy nation about to punish them. They will cut off your nose and ears, and any survivors will then be slaughtered by the sword. Your children will be taken away as captives, and everything that is left will be burned. They will strip you of your beautiful clothes and jewels. In this way, I'll put a stop to the lewdness and prostitution you brought from Egypt. You will never cast longing eyes on those things or fondly remember your time in Egypt. Perhaps an even greater parallel passage is found in Jeremiah. We'll begin with chapter 51, verse 6. Flee from Babylon, save yourselves, don't get trapped in her punishment. It is the Lord's time for vengeance. He will repay her in full. Babylon has been a gold cup, like that gold cup of obscenities, in the Lord's hands, a cup that made the whole earth drunk. The nations drank Babylon's wine, and it drove them all mad, like the kings drink from the cup of the great prostitute. But suddenly Babylon too has fallen. Weep for her, give her medicine. Perhaps she can yet be healed. We would have helped her if we could, but nothing can save her now. Let her go, abandon her, return now to your own land. For the punishment reaches to the heavens. It is so great it cannot be measured. The Lord has vindicated us. Come, let us announce to Jerusalem everything the Lord our God has done. Sharpen the arrows, lift up the shields, for the Lord has inspired the kings of the Medes to march against Babylon and destroy her. This is the vengeance against those who desecrated his temple. Raise the battle flag against Babylon, reinforce the guard and station the watchmen. Prepare an ambush, for the Lord will fulfill all his plans against Babylon. You are a city by a great river, just like this woman was compared to Babylon the Great, a city, and she was presiding over the waters. So you are a city by a great river, a great center of commerce, but your end has come. The thread of your life is cut. The Lord of heaven's armies has taken this vow and has sworn to it by his own name. Your cities will be filled with enemies, like fields swarming with locusts, and they will shout in triumph over you. So yes, the great prostitute does represent all evil people, but it also represents the economic religious arm of the world system, where we see that the great prostitute is living a very luxurious, wealthy, well-off life. The woman wore purple and scarlet clothing. Purple represents royalty. Scarlet clothing, red, is associated with blood, and beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. So she's killing God's people and benefiting off of it. Beautiful jewelry made of gold and precious gems and pearls. In her hand she held a gold goblet, so she's very rich. It's the economic religious arm of the world system because she's guilty of witchcraft, idolatry, seduction, and prostitution. So we have the economic religious arm of the world system, and we also have the political arm of the world system, symbolized by the beast. The scarlet beast had 7 heads and 10 horns. Well, guess what? The beast out of the sea, we saw early in Revelation, also had 7 heads and 10 horns, so these two beasts must be the same. There's also another parallel between these two beasts. We see in verse 8 that this beast had undergone a mock resurrection. And the people who belong to this world, whose names were not written in the book of life before the world was made, will be amazed at the reappearance of this beast who had died. We see a false resurrection, a parody of the resurrection of Christ. We also saw the same parody in the narrative of the beast out of the sea. Both beasts performed this same feat, and all the people of the world are amazed by this feat, and they bend the knee to it. So the beast out of the sea, as well as the scarlet beast, should be seen as all evil governments opposing Christianity. America takes place in this beast whenever it marginalizes Christians and tries to secularize the culture. So the great prostitute is reclining on the beast. That means she is benefiting off the beast, as I explained before. Evil people are enjoying the promises and the provisions of evil government. They're prospering, they're flourishing in this evil world system under the reign of these ungodly people. They think that they're benefiting off these people who are in power. But these people who are in power are just in it for themselves. They're going to begin to oppress the people that they promised that they would help and support. And we've seen this type of political environment and these government situations throughout world history. So a quick recap, the great prostitute in chapter 17 represents all unsaved people. It also represents the economic religious arm of the world system. The scarlet beast we see in Revelation represents Satan, and it also represents the political arm of the world system. Both arms will clash. They seem to be getting along pretty well, but soon Satan is going to betray the people that are following him. And that concludes chapter 17 of Revelation. I hope that you've benefited off this chapter. I hope that you've learned as much as you possibly could have. If you still have any questions, because I understand this is a pretty confusing chapter, I'd love for you to just leave a comment, ask whatever question you've got, and I'll try my best to answer it. I also ask that you'll like this video, subscribe to my channel, and watch my next one. Until that time comes, God bless you.